Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is young African American professionals. And we're fortunate to have here to talk about young African American professionals, Pastor Kay Walker and Mr. Brandon Van Leer. And of course, I think, Pastor Walker, let me welcome you and Van Leer to a new season in a real sense, and to know that this is Mr. Van Leer's first time being with us. But as you know, and as you've probably told him, you've been with us for the last 25 years. And so I think that our audience is quite familiar with Pastor Kay Walker. And of course, what we'll have you to do is to make some statements in reference to your background, education, and experience. And Mr. Van Leer can then make the same information in reference to his situation. And we'll be out of this first 6-minute segment. And then we can talk about young professionals and talking specifically about Van Leer and you as a professional. Let's do it from that perspective.
Well, thanks a lot, Dr. Haney. Good morning once again. Thanks for having us on the show. Very informative show here. Comments. My name is Pastor Kelvin L. Walker, born right here in Nashville, Tennessee. Good parents. Raised me right, taught me right, led me and steered me in the right direction. Of course, I was one of those hard-headed ones, and I went off in the wrong direction. Raised up in the public school system and stuff up until a certain point where when I decided to learn, I would learn. When I didn't want to learn, I didn't want to learn. So it got to a point where I was just a bad guy, at that time, and eventually I got put out of the public school system, got in trouble, ended up shooting a guy. And Judge Richard Jenkins, in the juvenile court system, decided that I would be better off if I went to the military. So I went into the United States Navy at the age of 17, stayed in there a little while, and got out. Pursued a GED through a OIC, Opportunities Industrialization Center. Got that 6-month program there. Got that GED, then pursued some studies at Tennessee State University. Wanted to become a fashion designer. But at the time, Dr. Haney, I was caught up in drugs. My drug addiction, heroin addiction would not allow me to stick a stay in school. So I ended up bailing out of school and everything, and ended up incarcerated in the state prison system because of some various number of crimes that I committed, and got out of the prison system, of course, unreformed, unchanged. And but in 1986, on August 24th, 1986, God divinely intervened in my life, man. And He stopped the 17+ year drug addiction, called me into ministry, and that's been what I've been doing for the last almost 33 years now. And I'm just delighted to be on your show and to bring this young brother on the show that I just recently met, man, that's aspiring to do some great things in the professional realm in terms of entrepreneurship, and just let him tell you something about himself.
What about you, Mr. Van Leer?
I'm here from Nashville, Tennessee, born and raised. My parents are both from Kentucky. My sister, she's here. I attended East Nashville Magnet School, and after that I went to Tennessee State University on a scholarship, a full academic scholarship. I did not know I was going to get that, but thanks to my guidance counselor, she put my name in the lottery for it, and I just so happened to get the scholarship. And that was a blessing for me, from my parents, and I had to pay for school and all that. So I went to school, wasn't sure I was going to major in, but I knew I wanted to do something with graphic design, and I wanted to do something with arts. And so I put the two together, and I just came up with graphic design. And then after that, 4 years passed by. I joined Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. I was a bachelor's for a year, which is a president, Greek term for president. And then I graduated last year, and so now I'm on my own. I'm trying to make a career out of my graphic design, a career out of my artwork, and now I'm here just pushing forward.
Mm-hmm. And so, Pastor Walker, you serve as a mentor for a large number of young people in a real sense. And what do you see in this young man in terms of why it's important what he's doing?
Well, Dr. Haney, I'm inspired because, a lot of times, you know how it is when we turn our television sets on, Dr. Haney, and the first thing, a lot of times we see is the negative news stories about something, some young black man has done, some crime that, have been committed. And I'm first to say that when I was committing crimes, I was guilty. I did it, you know what I'm saying? And I should have been arrested and should have been incarcerated when I did it. But at the same time, it seems like crimes are committed, but the crimes that the black male commits seem like they're more highlighted, they're more exaggerated, more expressions are lent to it. And it sends a bad signal to the community, to society, that says that we're all bad, you know, and that there's none of us that are good. So, and when you encounter young black males, you know, of course, I know this is a myth. I know this is stupidity. And for somebody to even think like that, you know, you got to check, you know, wonder where their thinking has been derived from in the first place. But at the same time, when you see a young black man, you know, doing what he's doing, inspiring to grow, man, it's inspiring.
Okay, so what we'll do, we'll take our first commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short break. Van Leer. This will give you an opportunity to talk about some of the things that you'd like to talk about. I need some water. Yeah.
Now, what picture is that one right there?
That's Barack Obama.
Oh, man.
I only had one easel, so.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so this will give you an opportunity, Ms. Van Leer.
Maybe I could get a shot of that one. You could probably put that other. She could probably put that other one up there.
Mm-hmm. So.
You got one of Mr. Obama there too.
Yes, sir. That's Barack Obama.
Oh, see, you see that? I didn't see that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fake. It's just flipped around. I only had brought one easel.
And so you did one of Malcolm X, and you've got.
I have a collection about 15 portraits or so.
Oh yeah. Well, you talk about that. You know, tell us about what you're doing and why it's important in terms of what you're doing, and especially why you are concerned with these African American historical figures. You know, Malcolm X and et cetera, and some of the others that you have as images.
Okay.
How you got into artwork and all of that stuff.
Take that much to get me a drink of water.
So I'll talk about that. And I'll talk about my parents my dad and my sister are very artistic. And I grew up in an artistic household. So
great, man. Yeah, talk about all of that, because that shows your roots, man, and what you growed up out of, you know.
And so this 8-minute segment, Mr. Van Leer, now what do I do with this? He'll be back. He can't move until he get over there anyway.
Yeah, because a lot of people talk about the environments, our environments and stuff like that, and how
Put it somewhere.
when they talk about how
Just set it there.
they always talk about how the negative environment impacts us. They don't talk about how the positive environment impacts us.
Okay, this is the second segment of this show, right?
Yes, sir. Second segment.
if I messed up.
Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking about young African American professionals, and Pastor Walker and Mr. Brandon Van Leer are here both to give us some information in reference to some of the challenges of young African American professionals, as well as some of the work of young African American professionals. So let's talk about you, Mr. Van Leer, to have you to make some statements in reference to what you're doing in reference to your art, and explain to a large number of folks as to what it means to be what do you call it, a graphics designer. Talk about that and give some examples.
Well, I give my credit to my parents. I was raised in an artistic household. My dad, he had done theater his whole life, so he does Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. He also does music as well, Little Richard and stuff like that. And my sister, she's very artistic as well. And then my mom, she's more on the organization side. So I took those skills, and I think growing up in that household has kind of pushed me to an artistic sense. And so now I use my abilities, my God-given talent that I realized, and I use it to highlight the black community. I have a collection of about 15 portraits highlighting the black community, from Malcolm X to Barack Obama to Maya Angelou, a lot of people who I see as good role models for us, and I don't think they're highlighted enough. And I think it's very significant that I'm black, I'm African American, highlighting these African American people. And I just want to give a good impact, a good role models for the children. And also, I'm still young, so I think it makes it's more coming from me since I'm the same age as some of the kids who are messing up and doing this and that. And so, using my platform, I want to be able to give a positive role model for people my age, people younger, and just be able to help in all sense I can.
It's also important, I think, Mr. Van Leer, to demonstrate that what a graphics designer is and how folks might be able to become a graphics designer and the importance of it. Why don't you say something about that, young black professionals, Pastor Walker?
You know, one thing I do want to say something about that's interesting to me is that, Dr. Haynes, you know, we always talk about our environment, you know, and how our environment impacts us and stuff like that. But when you look at people talking about that, it's always from a negative stance. You very seldom hear it, and I'm gonna put it like this. You very seldom hear it spoken of from a positive stance when you're making reference to a young African-American male. It's always the negative. You know, you hear somebody, when a young African-American male gets in trouble or something, what the first thing they go about? Well, it starts in the home. It starts in the home. You know, and he didn't have any home training. The parents wasn't right, or this or that, or something like that, reflecting upon the home environment and then the environment immediately in the community that they grew up in. But now he's talking about an environment where all of his parents are all artistic and stuff like that, and it sounds like that he comes from a very good family and from a very positive environment that impacted him in a positive way. So therefore, he starts off on this course of life, living life, looking not for the negative, but for the positive as a result of being rooted and grounded in some positive soil. And that's what, you know, that's what steps out to me, you know. And, you know, the artwork, man, you know, when I was younger, you know, I used to like to draw, man. I would draw these cartoon characters and stuff like that. But when I got caught up in the heroin and the drugs and stuff like that, I don't know where my little skills, my little talent went, man. It just went out the window, man. It just left, you know. I had a guy about a couple of weeks ago tell me, man, you know, maybe if you just sit down and just sit patiently and, you know, and just do it, it may come back to you. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. I just, you know, it just went away, you know. But to see, you know, this young brother here, man, that's not only got the talent, the God-given gift to sit there and to draw and to do what he's doing, but to reach out with it, to seek to excel and to grow in it. And not only that, but to reach out and to highlight, you know, the things that's going on, the people that represent positive things in the African-American community, people like Malcolm X, Barack Obama, Maya Angelou, and there's so many others that, you know, he haven't even named all the portraits that he have. But, man, just looking at his artwork of Malcolm, man, boy.
And I was thinking that, too, in a real sense, Mr. Van Leer, that to come up with a series of artists, I mean, a series of individuals that you've presented by way of your designs. What were some of the organizational principles behind these individuals? Excuse me. For example, the ones that you've demonstrated today, they are part of a larger series of 8 or 12 more. What were some of the organizational principles in terms of why did this individual make it and who made it and who didn't make it? Do it from that perspective.
Okay, well, I'll talk about my first portrait. It was of Ice Cube. It was after I saw the movie Straight Outta Compton. I know the movie wasn't family oriented, but it showed me how Ice Cube has gone from this environment and he's grown himself into what he is today. He's a positive role model now. He's a producer, he's a father, he's an actor, so he's really established and he's been resilient and he's persisted through all these acts as a child or when he was younger. And I think that's really important, is to keep pushing on, be persistent and push through anything. And then Barack Obama, the first black president, and that's just something you have to highlight no matter what. I also have Maya Angelou, black poet, and a lot of females, a lot of women look up to her inspiration. I've done Michelle Obama, and right now she has her book Becoming. She's doing tours. She's the role model for black women, for young women. And I think that's really important to highlight people of that stature and just not any and everybody. But I think there's a select people that I do, is people who I respect, who other people respect, who are African American, and people who are just positive role models to the community.
Well, now, how do you reproduce these items? We've got about a minute and a half here. How do you reproduce them, and what do you do? Do you make them for what, to sell, or to what? What is that aspect of it?
Well, for the process is first I graph it, and to graph it is make the small